What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Real Impact. Got a great guest for you guys today, Josh Chan. So let's dive in.
One, two, three, four.
All right, Josh, what's going on, man?
What's going on, bro? That's a badass intro.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Um, well, cool, man. Yeah, let's just start off, man. Just tell everybody who you are, right? Who is Josh Chan?
Hey, guys, my name is Josh Chan. I'm one of the founders of skiptracing.com. I started off as a wholesaler and then built a multi-million-dollar data company.
Data is king, right?
Yep.
Man. So yeah, I mean, let's dive into that, man. Like, let's unpack that. So you say you started off as a wholesaler, right?
Yeah.
When was that?
I got started in wholesaling in 2016.
Okay.
I did about like 120 my first year, 260 the next year, about 460 the next year, and then 800,000 the next year after that.
Okay. So you were in wholesaling for what? Probably a good like 4 years, give or
Yeah,
take.
so I did it for about 4 years, and then I learned that I could impact the most amount of people through data. Because
Okay.
I wasn't a good wholesaler, but the one thing I was good at was lead generation. Because
Okay.
in our business, man, we were generating about like 900 leads a month, and we were making
Yeah,
six
that's pretty
figures.
good.
People were saying, like, some people told me, dude, if we were making
Yeah.
not 900 leads a month, we'd probably be doing like a million a month or something. Like, I was like, that's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, we're that bad.
Just not bad at closing.
We're bad at closing.
That's crazy, man. Okay, so you started back in 2016, right? I mean, now it's what, 6 years ago, right? That's crazy. Um, what was it that like got you started, and what were you doing before like you got into wholesaling?
Oh, dude, I was a broke college student, wanted to drop out of college. And then my mentor was a guy named Jalen White. This guy was the same age as me, had a white Lamborghini. I was like he had like six figures in the bank too. And then
Yeah,
I was like, man, that would be a nice lifestyle. And
yeah.
so I started asking him if he could like mentor me. Took about 12 times of asking. Eventually he said yes. And then that's kind of like the right people in your life. Like, and I'm not a big believer in mentorships in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
because like I think people got to prove it to themselves that they
Mm-hmm.
could do a lot without a mentor, right? Because if you're able to help yourself, then like the mentor, I think the mentor comes if you put yourself right in front of them, right? So
Right.
I think that's what it comes down to.
No, I mean, I agree with you on that one, man. Like, I think a lot of people I think a lot of people do a disservice to themselves, right? By, trying to hire a mentor like right off the bat, like thinking it's like a shortcut and everything like that. I mean, to be honest, like the way I look at it is like, a mentor is really just going to pour gasoline on the fire, right? But you got to start the fire first, and that's the way I look at it too, is, I think the mentorship is great. And I'm not knocking it all. Like, I'm a firm believer, like, they like mentors are huge, right? Especially when it comes to like breaking ceilings or, getting past like different roadblocks or hurdles in business, or even in life, right? But I feel like, especially like in business, like there's a huge misconception, like, oh, I want to get started, I need to hire a mentor. I need to drop, 20, 30 grand on, mom or grandma's credit card so I can get this guy to show me, how to make 10, 20 grand a month, right? Like,
'Cause when you're the real deal yourself, you don't gotta pay a mentor. Like you just do deals with the mentor, and then boom, you start making money together.
yeah. And I mean, I think there's a time and place, I think, for paid education, right? And there's a time and place for, paying to be in the right rooms or paying to be in the right seats, like, we were talking about earlier, like collective genius, like being surrounded by, people who are doing a lot more, but again, like we talked about earlier, it's about like timing, you know, if I was just getting into this and I was in collective genius and I was listening to some of the guys and the conversations they're having, dude, my head would explode. Like it's different, you know?
Like get two different conversations, right? Like, could you and I, we're hanging around people that are doing like 12 plus mil a year with private jets, like, off screen, probably got like 200 or less followers on Instagram.
Right.
And like, like we talked about how like the same mindset that took you to go from 0 to 1 mil is going to be a different mindset that takes you from 0 to 3 mil and from 3 mil to 12. And
Mhm.
so it's all like a lot. I've noticed like a lot of like big guys out there, they get out of touch with reality.
Yeah.
Like me and my
Yeah.
wife, we always try to stay in reality, right? Like,
Yeah.
but man, a lot of top guys, but we understand why at the same time. It's like the level that they're dealing with things,
Yeah.
like it's hard to stay like, like
Mhm.
authentic to things and like, like see what's really going on, the big picture, and like be able to like, enjoy life, enjoy happiness
Yeah.
and all
No,
of
I
that.
think that's huge. And I think, I think they sell the dream more than they do the actual reality, right? Especially with like new people or like, like people like yourself, right? You were a broke college kid, right? You saw the dude with a Lamborghini, you're like, dang, I want that. He didn't tell you what it took to get to that Lamborghini, right? And especially, when we're in those situations where it's like, we want more and we think there's more, we want better, right? Like all we see is the end result, which is great, right? And it's attainable, but it's like we forget that there's a process to get there, you know? And I think that's a big like issue right now in like the whole guru world and everything is like people are selling the end dream. They're not selling, you got to fall in love with the process to get to that end dream, you know? And I think that's huge, man. But let's get away from the guru stuff, right? Like we could sit there and talk about that for a whole episode, right? But we're not gonna bore everybody with that. So tell me a little bit, man. Like we've known each other for a little while, right? I've seen all the hairstyles, right? I've seen the brown, I've seen the green, and now we got, what is that, blue?
Yeah, we got a little blue hair going on.
So what's inspired the colored hair, man?
Dude, like I like being like the actor, director, and like screenwriter of our own lives, right? Like, this is an avatar that I want to freaking create. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like whatever car people want to have, whatever house they have, like me and my wife, we're just big believers in like, making whatever we want a reality, brother.
Love it, man. Love it. So let's go back now, right? We
Yep.
we kind of got the mush and everything out of the way. So let's go back now. So 2016, you're in wholesaling. You have a pretty good solid 4 years, right?
Yep.
I don't think anybody would look at making 800 grand a year and be like, yeah, that's not good. So what was it, do you think that really like drove you to, really get away from that?
Yeah, so my mentor, yeah, so I'm just trying to think like what I can say and what I can't say.
Right. Yeah. 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 Obviously, you don't want to.
Mentor name, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that
you don't want to spill too
work
many
and
secrets,
all
right?
this
So,
stuff. So, all right. So my mentor, maybe we're gonna have to like beep out his name.
that's
And then,
fine. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that because it's
all right. So my mentor, right? So he was like, man, Josh, you're saving a lot of money from wholesaling. Like, like it's time to like start buying out businesses. And then I was like, like, did you buy out any businesses? And like he told me that he bought out like an email marketing company for like 150 grand cash. And then he made like $3 million from that investment. And then I was like, I have 300, I have 150 grand cash. I
yeah,
was like, even if I walk away with 600,000, I'm like, I'm not even greedy. I'd
yeah,
be happy.
yeah. That's
Right.
that's a that's an ROI and a half right there. Yeah,
Yeah. So like, a bunch of my friends, like I've always hung out with, wholesalers that done like $3 million plus in their businesses.
hmm
And then like one of my friends was just like, oh dude, it seems like you're good at the data stuff. I happen to have like a data company that I'm looking to sell. So
there you
I
go.
bought out that, like my mindset was like, man, like here's an opportunity to buy out my
Mhm.
first business. I don't know anything about data,
Right.
and I bought out the data company for my friend for 60,000 total.
That's it?
60 grand. That's it. Year one, it did $460,000.
Oh yeah. So
600 customers in the CRM. I called all 600 customers one by one to take.
I think I was one of those, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just being like, hey, my name's Josh Chan, like you don't know who I am, but I'm a wholesaler just like you. And I was wondering if I could like hook you up with any list for direct mail, list, skip tracing, stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
back then I didn't do skip tracing because there was no value there. Right. Because everybody was getting skip tracing at like IDI for like 8 cents a record and they would resell it at 15 cents a record. I was like,
Right.
there's thousands of companies doing that. But then that's where we met Doss, because me and Hana, we were running a list company, right?
Mhm.
Eventually, we were selling like list source lists and all of that stuff. And then Doss was like, "Dude, you guys gotta get into skip tracing." And
Mhm.
then I was like, "There's no value, right?"
Right.
But Doss was just like, for $1 million. He's like, I'll put up 333,000. Hana, you put up 333,000. Josh, you put up 300,000, 333,000. We can get the data at 3 cents a record and resell it at 8 cents a record. And then so that's pretty much what we did. And then
Mhm.
eventually over time we put up $2 million total to get it below 3 cents a record so everybody can have skip tracing. So everybody's like, why is the data so cheap? It's not cheap.
Right. Yeah.
It's a
You
low
just
price.
bought it down. Yeah.
You just brought it down. Exactly right.
Okay. Awesome, man. So obviously they're a lot different, right? You go from wholesaling real estate to now like data and skip tracing, right? Um, which one of those two would you say, like objectively, right, was more?
I think we lost him for a second. Let me see if I can get him back.
Perfect.
There we go. Are we back?
Yep, we're back.
Yeah, you left off. You were asking about the wholesaling versus.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So John I'll just mark that at like 12 minutes.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So what I was saying is like obviously like you go from wholesaling to like data and skip tracing, right? Like which one of those was like more difficult for you to like wrap your head around? Because obviously they're like completely different like businesses and like business models. And so like which one of those was like more difficult to like really like grasp, like
I'm a big believer, dude. If you can do $1 million in one business, you can do millions of dollars in any business. Right? Like that's the beautiful thing about like wholesaling, right? Because you gotta, dude. People don't realize that I still spend marketing money.
yeah, wholesale.
Like, I spend 45 grand a month marketing data. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but in order for me to learn how to do this, when I have my wholesale business, I was spending 15 grand a month
Hmm.
marketing to sellers. Right? The
Right.
only difference is I'm spending 3 times the money. That's
Right.
it.
And your target's different.
Yeah, the target different, but the confidence is there.
Right. So what you're saying really is that the business models aren't too different. It's
Yeah,
just a matter
it's
of,
not different
yeah.
whatsoever.
Okay. I like it, man. So now we're in right like kind skip tracing land, and kind of like what's the business look like now for you guys? I know whenever we first linked up, it was like back in 2020. I had just kind of gotten off the ground and just gotten started, right? And I think it was genius, really kind of like what you did, right, with the first like mastermind group that you kind of put together, right? Which I think that's really how you kind of grew. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like that's really how you kind of grew like your first like your big like clientele base, right? Like, so explain that like approach that you did, because like that's how we met, right? You reached out to me. I know you from Adam, right? And you were like, "Hey, this is who I am. Come join this group." So kind of like explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So like in Europe, I had a lot of free time, and I wanted to like have a place where people that were actively doing deals like network, because everything's always changing, right? Like what worked 6 months ago does not work today, right?
Right.
Or what worked a year ago, like doesn't work today either, right? So like I wanted to have a group where I brought like 1,000 of the best wholesalers, people that did like 2 or 3 deals or more this year, right? Because if they did 2 or 3 deals last year, I was like really completely different, right?
Right.
So, so what I did was, I told everybody, hey, send me your HUD, send me your checks, and then if you have like 3 or more HUD statements, you're gonna be within this free mastermind group that I created. I think we ended up getting like 250 people, and then from there, like I took 47 of those guys, or like maybe like, they introduced me to like, somebody that they knew.
Mm-hmm.
And then nowadays, like, I help a lot of their businesses scale to like 2 mil a year, 3 mil a year, 5 mil a year. We got 3 clients doing between 12 to 15 mil a year. And
That's
then we
killer,
got,
man.
I would say we got 10 clients doing between 5 to 7 mil a year.
And all of that just from a free mastermind.
All of that networking from a free mastermind, because it builds a lot of credibility. Like, man, this guy is learning everything about everybody's businesses. He sees the KPI systems and operations of
Mm-hmm.
everybody's businesses. So like, let's see what he can see within our business. Because like whenever I'm looking at a report, I see 10 different things that like nobody else sees, right? Like I
Right.
can look at a cold call report, and then I'm like, like you'll probably like never hear like,
Mm-hmm.
what I've seen, like, within there, like from
Yeah.
anybody.
Well, and it shows too, like especially like watching like your Instagram stories and stuff like that. You're talking about all the different carriers and all like the cold, like the dialers and stuff like that, right? Like that's stuff that like your average wholesaler, especially, right? Or like honestly, like your average business owner isn't really gonna know. Like that's a lot of stuff because like you're in data, right? That's what you do. So like you're just like with wholesaling or just like with a lot of other businesses, right? Like it's constantly changing and evolving. Same thing with the data, right? It's always changing and evolving. And I think that's a big kicker too, is it's like you're a specialist in your thing, right?
You know what's funny, Austin? So I got some clients, man. So like my biggest clients, they have between like 120,000 to 180,000 leads in their CRM,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they're like, man, dude, like, hey, Josh, can you help me out? Man, I'm really struggling, right? Like, like
Yeah.
last month we brought in about like 6,000 leads. Yeah, it slowed
That's it.
down, but
Yeah.
it slowed down because before we do like 9,000 leads a month, right? But then I meet other people that are just like, yeah, bro, we got a lot of leads in the CRM. We got about 600 leads produced so well, like 600 leads a day, or like,
Yeah.
we did you guys have an old CRM or something, or like what am I
Yeah.
missing? Like
Yeah.
what
Where's
we're
the rest? Yeah. That's
so,
crazy.
but looking in, so a lot of my top clients on average, they got 50 to 60 cold callers, right? So as a data guy, I got to be able to see like what markets they need to target, what list they should target. And like, I gotta like I gotta be educated enough to know like what keep their numbers from being like, flagged, or like, how can they get the highest amount of results,
Mhm.
using our data. And so like, I'm in CG, right? We pay, I don't know what we pay, 35K a year, something like that,
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
be in it. And so I'm learning like, so, but total, I would say me and Hannah, we spend about like maybe $200,000 plus a year on like mentorship from top people to like be able to stay up to date on like what are things going on,
Mhm.
learn about everything.
And just like what's working and what's not working and just different viewpoints, right?
Exactly right.
No, that's awesome, man. So you guys are in Charlotte right now, right?
Yeah.
So I know whenever we first connected, right, you guys were living in Europe, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what was that like? Because obviously, time zone's different, and at the time, I think you were like you said, you were just kind of like starting off to kind skip tracing, right? So, how was that process like being in Europe? Different time zones from pretty much all of your client base. How was
I
that?
fucking love it, bro. So like my schedule, man, was like I woke up at 11 a.m. every single morning. Me and my wife, we would just go out on dates all the way till 5 p.m. I didn't work until 5 p.m. whatsoever. So like by the time it's 5 p.m., man, I'm working from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. every single morning. So 12-hour work days and 6-hour date days. I love it. I'm like in America, man, I gotta wake up early to have that same time advantage. But
Right,
I'm not really a night owl, but I have to adapt so that
right.
I get a lot more done.
Okay. So dang, you guys were spoiled, it sounds like, over in Europe.
Dude, it's impossible to spend like $3,000 a month in Europe, dude. Like here, dude, our like so I mean like we had a nice place in Europe, right?
Hmm.
The same spot we have here in America costs 7,000 a month, man. You know, like we I used
Yeah.
to pay $2 for somebody to deliver like over like Uber Eats per delivery. Now I'm paying what, 15, $20 or
If
something
you're
or whatever
lucky,
for
right?
delivery.
Yeah.
It's freaking crazy.
That's wild, man.
100%.
So let's dive into a little bit more about like the growth, right, that you guys have had.
Yep.
Because obviously, like I think you said, what you bought the company back in 2019 or 2020.
2018.
Oh, 2018. Okay.
2018. So
Okay.
we bought maybe like 7 data companies total, and then we merged them over time, right? So
Gotcha. Okay.
the first data company was bought for 60, then like did it did like 460. The second data company we bought for like maybe 120, probably didn't do too well. Third company we bought like an eviction data company at one point for like 40 grand. That was a flop. We bought like an LLC skip tracing company at one point. That was a flop. But
Yeah.
then we bought like Kind, right? We had to buy like an infrastructure for like the skip tracing and everything, right?
Hmm.
We didn't really start it. We bought something that was kind of like already existing. And then, Kind, like we like total into Kind, we put in 2 million, and then total that it's made probably like 6 to 7 mil total.
Okay. A decent little return.
Yeah, decent
Yeah.
level return.
So what's kind of like I don't know. I don't know if I would call it overhead, right? Because I think overhead obviously is the infrastructure that like you said, you
Yeah,
guys have, built and everything. But
yeah.
I mean, what would you say is like the biggest, um, in, you
Cost.
know, biggest cost and also like operating,
Yeah.
kind of hurdle you guys have to do, running the data company?
Yeah, so I would say that yeah, so I would say that like so our employee expenses are about 15 grand a month. So I know that one off the top of my head, right? So 15 grand a month is set aside for the employees every single month. And then on top of that, um, so lists are free on our company, right? List is a marketing cost. And to have lists fresh every single month, that has a cost to it.
Right.
So then we do marketing on top. So we include lists and marketing at like a marketing cost, right?
Right.
I would say our lists and marketing cost that's about like 45 to 50 thousand dollars a month total.
Okay.
And then everything else goes in like to store the data. So we use Amazon storage,
The
AWS.
AWS. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So AWS earns like 4 grand a month off of us. So they're earning $48,000 a year just off of us alone. So
Amazon, man.
we asked
Amazon's
Jeff
got their hands
Bezos.
in everything, man.
Well, I'm like, damn, Jeff Bezos is getting rich, man.
Wild. It's
Yeah,
wild.
bro. So AWS is used to store all the data, and then the data, updating the data and the data inventory and everything. That's probably about like 60,000 to $70,000 a month. So that's the total cost. So we're spending $120,000 a month total. On a bad month, we'll make about 200. On a good month, we'll make about 330.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
100%.
So what's kind of the future, right? Because obviously, you guys have done good, getting to this point, right?
Yeah.
So what's next, right? Like, where do you guys see yourselves going? If there's something you can talk about, right?
Dude, everything's open here, man. This is the real impact, bro.
Yeah.
And dude, I freaking love this name too, man. Because like for us, bro, we're really not about the money. It may seem like that, right? But we're really not about the money. Like for us, man, like dude, we could have been retired, man. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we could buy $1 million house, gas, no problem, right? But for us, man, like I was telling my dad the other day too. Like my dad's like, "You guys got like $1 million plus in the bank." I'm my dad. I'm gonna be putting every single dollar back. Me and Hannah's gonna be putting every single dollar back into the company because we want to like impact most amount of lives possible. And that's what we're really focused on. And like for us, like it's whatever it takes. Ideally, like yeah, if we do 3.5 mil this year, it'd be great to reinvest all 3.5 mil so that people like, so number one, data becomes affordable for all. Because when I was a wholesaler, dude, like the reason I got into data was because I spent $36,000 in list plus skip tracing, and I was like, and then like I probably made like $200,000 back. Right, like with just that one set, then I would buy like another $36,000 with a list plus skip tracing, right? And then it would be a never ending cycle. And like me, Hana, and Thas, like our mindset was just like, wouldn't it be great to be able to spend $5,000 and make $200,000? And that's exactly what we created today. We like legit. So like the rule of thumb is that you usually want to, like if you're good at wholesaling, you can produce $1 per record. If you're a pro at wholesaling, you can produce $2 a record. If you're like a legend at wholesaling, you can produce $3 per record. So if you have $1 million, $1 million property addresses skip trace, if you're a good wholesaler, $1 million is what you should be able to produce. If you're a really good wholesaler, 2 million. If you're a legendary wholesaler, 3 million off of 1 million property addresses skip trace. So
yeah, I've never heard that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, bro.
So you said if you're good, $1 per record. If you're a pro, right? Like, I'd say probably if you're already clearing, upwards of like 700 to $1 million a year, you should probably be clearing $2 per record, right? And then I'd say like the guys that are clearing, upwards of 3 to 5 million a year, you said $3 a record.
Exactly right.
Okay, so that's good, right? Because especially like from for business owners, for other wholesalers out there, right, that like to track their data, track their analytics, and track their KPIs. I mean, that's actually right there a good KPI to kind of keep in touch with. And I also think that's one that I didn't know of, right? So it's probably safe to say not a lot of people know that.
You know what's funny too? Like, because the thing is, man, if I gave a new wholesaler like every single record in like Jacksonville, Florida, and Duval County skip trace,
Right.
They're probably gonna close like 50 grand, and they're gonna like be like, oh, I gotta move on to the next class. But if I gave that motherfucker to you, you're gonna squeeze out $1 million.
Dude, yeah. Yeah, man. We squeeze lists for everything they're worth, man. I mean, we're big believers in that. We squeeze them out and then we'll recycle them, right? We'll squeeze them out, we'll put them on pause for a couple months, and then we'll reuse them.
Exactly. You're focusing the lifetime value of the list rather than.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is and to be completely honest, right? Like the way that we look at our marketing costs, like I don't even implement list into our monthly marketing costs. I do our list cost quarterly, right? And so like I don't calculate list costs on a monthly basis. I only look at list costs on a quarterly basis. So like if I have to spend, 15, 20 grand this month to buy a list, that's fine. I may not spend a dime next month, right? Because if we're still, pushing out leads every single day and we're still pushing out contracts, we're still pushing out deals, guess what? That list, we're still milking it, and then also too, like because we've built, we've been in it for, a little over 2 years now. So like we've built up a decent like database, right? So like, dude, I've went back and I've used a list that I first bought, right? All the way back from 2020. Obviously that list is old, it's outdated, but like we're still squeezing stuff out of it. So
And
yeah, go ahead.
dude, the list isn't even old, right? Because the thing is,
Right.
dude, only 10% of people change their phone numbers every single year. So even if you're calling a list that's 1 year old, dude, you're talking about like 10% of people changing their phone number. That's nothing. Every person on the whole list wants to sell their house in the next 30 years, right? Because dude, if you filter Jacksonville, how many people own the house for 30 years or longer is 1% of the population. What does that mean? 99% of people will sell before they hit that 30-year mark. If you contact every person once a year for 30 years straight, you'll close 10% of the deals that happen all in Jacksonville. And you guys' average profit per deal is probably like what, 17 grand?
I think we're rocking right around 21 right now.
$21,000 average per deal in Jacksonville.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a good point, man. And to be completely honest, I've never even looked at it that way, right? Like, because a lot of times we're looking at this as a company, right? And so, whenever it comes to that, right? Like, I plan on being around in 30 years, right? Obviously, all things considered, right? Everything goes according to plan. Like I plan on being around in 30 years. I plan on the company being around that long. So it's like, why get rid of list? Why, because like you said, everyone on that list at some point within now to 30 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they're going to want to sell it, and we may not be a good fit, right? It may not be that they need to sell it to us, but that doesn't mean that we need a new list. So I like that, man. That's a good way to look at it. That's a way that I've never even like looked at it, right? That's
And
killer.
another good tip, man, it's like in every 10,000 records, man, there's usually one immediate deal and 2 to 3 follow-up deals. So the thing is a lot of people don't know how to squeeze the maximum amount of leads from their entire like list, right? Because like the same concept goes again, right? You give 10,000 record to a new wholesaler, they're going to produce 30 leads average. And they're going to be like, oh, book up another, 20,000 records, right? And then we'll have 90 leads, and then that 90 leads is enough for one deal, right? That's how like a new person looks at it. But how an advanced person looks at it is they strategize resting the list, right? Because here's the thing, right? So an advanced person knows how to call without flag numbers, right? And then so from there, dude, like they're able to produce about 60 leads in 1 month from 10,000 records. If they call it the second month, they're only going to produce like 15 leads. So it's not worth it to call it the second month, right? Versus if they produce 60 leads, rest the list for 3 months, produce another 60 leads, rest the list for 3 months, produce another 60 leads, rest the list for 3 months, produce another 60 leads.
Right.
But this is what differentiates the top from everybody else. Right? Like, so what the top people will do is like, number one, they're going to put like, so here's the thing, phone 1, phone 2, and phone 3, right? Usually phone 1 is 60% of the right numbers. On the 40% of wrong numbers, the right number is on phone 2 or phone 3. So as long as you're contacting phone 1, phone 2, and phone 3, you have an 85% chance of reaching every single homeowner on the list. What the top people do is every single month, they're going to export the wrong numbers and the DNCs out of the list. That way the contact rate is a lot higher when they recall it 3 months from now. And then the second thing that they're going to do is they just rushed it, and then they're going to recall every single person that they contacted, every person that they haven't contacted, and they're going to contact everybody that said they're not interested.
I was about to say not interested too.
That's a huge one.
So, I think it's a big thing too, right? It's like, I think a lot of people, especially just getting started, like if they hear not interested, then they have their dialer mark them as DNC, right? And like we don't do that, like, I'll be completely honest, right? Like, somebody says they're not interested, cool. I'll probably call you in another 2 or 3 weeks. Like next time you cycle through, you're gonna get a hit back up, right? But I think that's a big kicker too, like you said. Like, not interested doesn't mean no; it just means not right now.
So I got another good one for you, bro. Right? So like, let's take the absentee list for example. Like big guys like you and I, like, and the guys that we hang out around, it's so easy to pull all 100,000 absentees in one market and skip trace it all and then call all 100,000 records in 1 week, right? Because that's how fucking good we are,
Dude,
right?
I'm not gonna lie. Like, whenever, like, I don't mean to cut you off, but like to that point, I remember whenever I felt like it took me forever to run through like 10,000 records, and like now it's like I have like 100,000 records in a campaign, and I'm like, dude, like, how are we running through this so fast? So I feel that.
Yeah, bro, it's like two different mindsets, right? So back to this point, right? So like, the thing is, it's like a new person. They're like, here's the thing, right? If you were to pull an absentee list in January, right? Let's just say you were to, let's just say on December, you were to pull a list of every property that sold in the last 12 months, and you were to stack them together, you'll see out of your 100,000 record absentee list, there were 14,000 houses sold, right? And then at the end of the year, the real question you got to ask is, why the fuck did I only close 9 deals total? And there were 14,000 motherfucking houses on this list. Can I cuss on this?
Yeah, you're good.
So the thing is most people don't realize that like 25% of those 25% of those deals will come from cold calling, right? The 25% of those deals will come from texting and RVMs. The 25% of those deals will come from commercial radio and direct mail. 25% of those deals will come from PPC and Facebook ads, right? All of them were located on the list. It's just that all of them sold in a completely different way. So
Right.
I have two friends out in Orlando, Damone Franklin and Desmond Pollock. Like I gave them 600,000 records last year. Well, they use one marketing stream. They use cold calling. What they told me they did was they gave their 600,000 record list to one call center, and that call center produced like maybe 1,000 leads, and then they gave that same 600,000 record list to a brand new call center, and that call center produces 800 different leads. And then they gave that same 600,000 records to another call center, and that call center produced like 2,500 leads.
Yeah.
And then, like all completely different, all completely unique.
Yep.
Same exact list. They told the call center that it was a new list each time.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, they did $1.1 million in assignment fees.
That's awesome.
Total.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, like they probably could have squeezed a lot more out of that if they would have, because like that's what I think. And we're also late to the party, right? But one of the things that we're starting to do now is like there's a lot more that you can use the list for than just your outbound marketing, right? Like you can use the list to have a demographic in Facebook ads. You can use the list to have a demographic in PPC, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that you can use the lists like outside of just let me cold call them, let me text them, let me send them an RVM, and like I said, we're a little bit late to that party, but like that's something that like I'm starting to realize now is that there's a lot more power in these lists. And like to your point, right, with marketing, everyone receives messages different, right? And like everyone learns differently. Everyone likes different things. And so where, like you said, like the 25% of deals that we get from that list in cold calling, right? Those people may not respond well to a piece of mail or may not respond well to the internet or may not respond well to a text message. But the flip side to that is everyone else responds to something different. And so like, that's a big thing that internally that we're also doing as well is like, we're implementing other marketing channels because, with the same list that we already have right now, how much more would we be able to squeeze out if we hit them from different angles?
Exactly right. Because once you learn that, then like from the same list you have, then it's gonna be like, oh, you close 30 deals from cold calling, 30 deals from texting, 30 deals from English voicemail, 30 deals from Facebook ads, 30 deals from PPC, and 30 deals from direct mail. And you're like, damn, I had a better year this year. Not bad.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing too, right? It's like, that's where, again, like, I think the common misconception with a lot of people is like, oh, as I scale, my marketing costs are going to go through the roof. Right. And I think a big, like what you said, right, when you first got started, like data was a huge expense. I mean, same here, right? Like, trying to use we won't throw people under the bus, but like trying to use like some of the top providers that are out there that get pushed by all these gurus, right? Like, you're paying 12 to 15 cents a record, 8 to 10 if you're lucky, right? You're doing volume. And, that adds up, especially when you're not closing, 15, 20 grand a month, right? And so, like, when you go to scale, if you can squeeze as much juice out of every single dollar that you're spending on those lists, by hitting them in different angles and, like you said, like calling them, resting them, calling them, resting them, like you're going to be a lot more profitable at the end of the year because your marketing costs, you're going to grow, right? You may have to, spend money in PPC, spend money in Facebook ads, or spend money in, more cold callers or textures, right? But your data costs don't necessarily have to grow.
How many records would you say you targeted to do 7 figures, Austin?
I would say we crossed it with, it's different, right? Cause like I took a different approach, like we ordered a lot of bulk lists. And then, here's a little, nugget for people out there. Right. And sorry, Josh, but I'm gonna throw it out there. But like one of the things that we did, right, was we would just reach out to people and trade lists, right? No harm, no foul. Hey, let me get a list you've already called. Right. And so we did that with a lot of our network. Right. And so, we were getting like 100,000 record lists from other people. I wasn't really concerned with the quality to be completely frank, right. Because they were free. If I was paying for them, then yeah, I'd be concerned, uberly concerned with the quality. But I would say like overall, like paid records, probably close to like 600,000. We probably got another like 300,000 records that we traded with. So that's probably where we were at. We were probably at like close to like 800,000 or 900,000 records whenever we crossed.
When you guys traded the record, you guys still ended up closing deals that the other person didn't.
Dude, well, that's one of the biggest. Like that's what I was saying, right? Like that's why I wasn't concerned about it because that was my thing, right? It's like I know how we squeeze lists, and I know how other people don't. And so, like a buddy of mine was doing, was like launching marketing in Dallas, Texas, right? I love Dallas, right? I love that market. And I was like, well, shoot, like instead of me going out and buying, 50 to 100,000 records in Dallas, let me trade a list with him. Let me test the market with this list. Then I can go out and buy the records, right? And so that's what we did. And he was like, yeah, dude, like I've already milked that list. It was like 80,000 records. And I was like, cool, man, I don't care. Let me have them. And dude, we ended up closing like over 6 figures off of that list that he told me that he'd already squeezed.
And he thought he squeezed it.
Oh yeah. He was like, yeah, dude, it's a dead list. And I was like, I don't care. Let me have it. And dude, and so like that was like our first real like success with like trading lists, right? Because I wanted to launch Dallas. But to be completely honest, I wanted to be cheap, right? Like I wanted to hold as much as we could. And I was like, well, I know he's doing stuff there. I'll tell you that. I wanted cheap. I wanted to be smart, right? I knew he was doing stuff in Texas. I knew he wasn't really like, I knew he was milking them, but he wasn't milking them like we squeeze them, right? And so I was like, well, let me do this. He's also doing stuff in Jacksonville. He's expressed interest in wanting to grow into different markets. I've got a ton of data, Jax, Orlando, and Tampa. So why don't I trade him my data that's old in Jax, Orlando, and Tampa for his Dallas records, right? And we ended up doing that. And yeah, dude, like we closed over 6 figures just off of just strictly off of those records that he sent us.
So check this out, bro. So I got about 10 customers that came to me last year, dude, that were all doing about 3 mil a year. I took all 10 of them to 7 mil a year. And the way I did it was I had to change their perspective and their mindset a lot, even at that level, right? I had to change their mindset and perspective. And like I told them this, right? Like I'd be like, okay, what county are you in? Right. And then they'll be like, oh, I'm in so-and-so county. We got like 100,000 absentees total. I'm like, okay, look, there's 14,000 absent. So like I went over what percentages, like how many deals came from each list, right? So I told them, look, from the absentee list, 14% of deals happen every single year. From the 20-year owner-occupied list, that's about 9%. From the no data list, that's about 5%, right? So like we're just gonna take these three for example. This is what I told them. I told them that all of us, like I was like, I don't care if the same like 100,000 records get targeted 100 times in 1 week, because it's gonna happen. Right? Everybody has a time frame, you know, like because no matter what happens, no matter how much they're contacted, the same 1,200 number doesn't change. 1,200 people sell in January, 1,200 sell in February, 1,200 sell in March, 1,200 sell in April. But you have to contact every person on the list to find that 1,200 that's gonna sell that month.
Right.
And with that one advice, bro, they doubled their business from 3 mil to 7.
Yeah. That's killer. That's awesome, man. So where for people that are like in that like kind of like cusp, right? They're either they just hit 6 figures for the first time, or they're just getting started, or they're trying to go from just hitting 6 figures to like really like sustainably hitting it, right? And obviously you're going to be, answer it how you see fit, right? But where would you suggest for people to, get their data, right? I mean, not obviously skip tracing, with you guys and everything, but as far as like list, right? The raw list, where would you say for people to get their lists?
Only 2 places, bro, either from the county or from us, right? So like, dude, we give list source lists free. You know what I mean? We signed a 7-figure contract with ListSource, and then we literally give all the data away from free. You can pay 3 cents to ListSource, you can like get it for free from us. Like it's complimentary as long as they use it for skip tracing.
Right.
So our data is just 3 cents a record. Like everything comes from ListSource, and then and also like the reason why we have like a lot of lists that ListSource doesn't have is because they have a lot of secret stuff on the back end. Just that like they don't share it because of whatever reason, right? It's premium data. So or the county, because the thing is like I posted this on my Instagram story the other day, right? Like you saw this. I was like, let me just test if the tax delinquents.
That's why I asked, right? Because I saw that, and I saw you're going back and forth with them.
Dude, I thought. Like, I was like, dude, I was thinking that like maybe half of it's true. No, 90% was false, bro. Like, so like, I don't want either one of us to get sued on this podcast.
I'm not going to bash any names because I'm actually, I'm affiliated with one of them, so I'm not going to bash any names or anything like that. We use the software, so.
Yeah, so like 2 of the top data companies out there that sell tax delinquent don't have real tax delinquents. But the county, when you pull it from the county, it's going to be 100% accurate, right? Because why would the county need to lie? They don't.
Right. Yeah. No, that's killer, man. Josh, we're coming up on 50 minutes here, so I want to think about something real quick. What's your your last piece, little nugget, motivation, whatever it is that you want to leave the listeners with. And then, we'll get you going. But guys, thank you guys for tuning in for this episode, man. Josh obviously is a plethora of knowledge when it comes like the data side of things and everything like that. Make sure you guys tune in on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern time for our live episode that we've got going on. We've got another, killer lineup for you guys. So, Josh, what's your last little nugget you want to leave everybody with?
The last little nugget is subscribe to the Real Impact. You gotta say, but also on top of that, just play big. Just play big, because as long as you're playing big, you can't lose. It's kind of like what Grant Cardone says, like, if you play big, like the bank's not gonna mess with you and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went to the bank the other day, and the banker was like, "Dude, you're like top 1% of our clients here at the bank. If you want money for multifamily, we'll lend you $5 million quick." Yeah, I was like, "Fuck, man! I didn't know that was a reward of playing big. I didn't know it was that easy." So like with wholesaling, I mean, like, you seen how much lives wholesaling changed? Like, you got Ding Graciosi, that dude freaking became like $100 millionaire dude from wholesaling. Like, so many people. So that's what I say.
Think big. I love it, man. Well, Josh, man, I appreciate you hopping on with us today, man. And go ahead and stay in the studio real quick. We're gonna wrap this up, and then we'll chat later. All right.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, guys. That wraps up this episode of The Real Impact. Again, like Josh said, man, don't be afraid. Think big. Think bigger than what you really see possible, because you never know what's going to happen, right? So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Peace.